I've just finished recording a video for the ASMR channel and I thought we could have a little chat next. Of course, I'm going to make a cup of tea. And as I mentioned at the end of the last video I did, what I want to talk about today is a subject close to my heart, and that's health. And also a related topic, health anxiety. This seems to be the routine now. Make a cup of tea in the kitchen and then come and sit down here and chat to you. I feel really relaxed on this sofa. I've had it for 20 years, I think. It's full of feathers and just nice and comfy. But yeah, let's talk about health. Because from the comments I've been reading on some of the videos I've done, I think we're in agreement that to enjoy a good retirement, no matter what age you are when you retire, you've got to have health. Health is so important. And I guess that's the subject I wanted to cover today, because I think prior to 2020, which seemed to be like the ground zero year for me, well, for a lot of us, because that's the year COVID started, I think I'd had a reasonably worry-free life, health-wise, for myself. I'd been a yo-yo dieter from my 20s, really. Prior to my 20s, I was very slender. I didn't really think much about what I ate. We grew up in a family where my mother cooked, basic food from scratch. We had a few processed things, but nothing like the amount that we all have now. And there wasn't an excess of anything. The chocolate in our house was a once-a-week treat. But when I got married and had my own home, because I did have a sweet tooth, I kind of did indulge because I could buy my own food now, and I did put on some weight. And this was the 80s. I discovered that I could lose weight quite easily by attending slimming clubs. Now, this was the decade of the rise of slimming clubs, and as much as I hadn't really given much thought to what I was eating previously, and I mostly ate a healthy diet, I suddenly learned all about calories and fat and how we shouldn't eat too much of any of it, fat, sugar or calories. And I absorbed myself in this newfound knowledge, the diet industry, and I started buying, as I'm sure a lot of us did, low-fat spreads, sugar-free everything. It was just the age we lived in. And I was able to maintain a reasonably slim weight. But I would go through phases of putting it on. I think I did get into the old yo-yo dieting. Food became good or bad. I would put on weight and I would punish myself and say, no, you've got to eat good food. And then that would get boring and difficult and restrictive, and then say, no, you can have some nice food. It's a very dangerous way of looking at food. I can see that now. I think a lot of us got caught up in it. No fault of our own. That was just the advice, I think, that we were given at the time. But I think the hangover of all of that has been a difficult relationship with food for me. And as I said, I could generally lose weight by following one diet or another. And I tried pretty much every diet under the sun. Slimming World, just calorie counting, Atkins, shakes, done them all with reasonable success, but inevitably they were never long-term because I didn't consider them long-term. They were just a way of getting rid of a few excess pounds so that I could go back to my normal way of eating until I needed to lose weight again. that was fine until I got to my 50s, and I wonder how many of you, particularly women, can relate. Once you start hitting that sort of pre-menopause time, suddenly this weight I couldn't shift, no matter how restrictive the diet was, couldn't shift the weight. Similarly, at the same time, other things started to go wrong that had never gone wrong for me before. My blood pressure was one. I've always had really low blood pressure, but all of a sudden I got to my 40s and I'd go to the regular health checks and they tell me your cholesterol is very high and your blood pressure is high. So having been a nurse, I kind of recognise that these were not good statistics, and combined, overweight, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and then sure enough, the next thing happened. I think it was 2 years ago, I went for a routine blood check at the surgery. I was pre-diabetic. My blood sugar was out of range. So that letter really shook me up, because I thought, if I carry on at this rate, I'm going to have consequences. However, the ways I'd always been able to lose weight in the past just weren't working anymore. The diets, no matter how restrictive, they just weren't working. And I was beginning to despair. And if you watched or look at the videos at the start of this channel, the ones I was doing sort of 2 years ago, that was the time that all of these things were happening, the weight gain and high blood pressure, etc. And around about that time also, I was going through some pretty stressy times with my own health, with the breast cancer. COVID did us dirty. I think if you didn't have health anxiety before COVID, you probably had it during or afterwards. And that was certainly true for me. I just then, from then onwards, with everything that was happening, my mother's health declining and then my sister's, there was just a wall of never-ending anxiety about my health and other people's, my family's health. And and I kind of felt powerless. And I think the advice that you hear so much, and pretty much every daytime TV show, every doctor's phone in, somebody would say about, oh, I've gained weight. And the advice from these well-meaning but very unhelpful professionals would be, to lose weight, you just eat less and move more. And I could literally smack someone in the mouth if they ever said that to me now. Because I just think that advice is so unhelpful. I think for a generation who had their metabolisms ruined by this low-fat, good food, bad food stuff, this, oh God, decades of that. And then to be told that it's your fault, you're lazy, you lack willpower. And I really do get angry, because I know myself, it's not a moral flaw. It's not because you're lazy. It's a medical problem. It should be treated as such, but you don't really get much sympathy other than a diet sheet or go along to this exercise class. But I do think there has been a massive breakthrough for those of us who do suffer with simply not being able to lose weight in the last few years, and that has been the weight loss injections. Now, this might be controversial, and some of you are going to be in uproar at what I'm saying, but some of you might be in agreement, and that is that I think the weight loss injections, the fact that they are available privately here in the UK and elsewhere, I think, but I can only speak from the UK, was a revelation to me. My experience of the NHS is, from working in it, was that people's medical conditions were very tightly managed by health professionals, and you weren't really allowed to medicate or take control of your medical health other than the unhelpful advice of, move more, eat less. So when I discovered that these weight loss injections were available on a prescription, but that you didn't need to go to your GP, I was very interested to try them. I'd worked in medical sales. I knew about these drugs when they were for other patients and unavailable on, through the NHS. So I knew the evidence for them and that they would help you lose weight. So I started taking them. I went to a company, there's lots of them around. You fill in your medical information, you've got to send photos, or you do a face-to-face consultation. And then if you meet the criteria, and there is strict criteria, quite right too, you will get prescribed this medication. And I started that 2 years ago. If you remember, that point I had a lot of stress going on. I was pre-diabetic, I had high blood pressure and weight gain. And the reason I went on the medication was purely for my health. It was that letter that I had saying you're pre-diabetic. It terrified me. And I thought, I know this medication was previously used for that area of health. And I thought, if I can just get my blood pressure and my blood sugar down. So I started taking it, and I'm not trying to sell this in any way. I am just wanting to be transparent with you about kind of what it did for me. It immediately curbed my appetite, which was always the main problem. I wasn't a big greedy person. I just couldn't seem to switch off my appetite. It didn't seem, no matter how many cakes I ate, there was never enough. I could just keep eating more. But once I started this medication, I had a far more sensible relationship with food. Suddenly, cake wasn't something to avoid at all cost. It wasn't a awful food. I could have a piece of cake, but I could have it in an amount that previously I thought I couldn't do. I couldn't just eat a slice. And suddenly it was enough. I felt satiated after having a small piece. Suddenly I didn't want second helpings of meals. I'd eat my meal and I was satisfied. It felt like a weight had been lifted. And I didn't go up many doses. I stayed on quite a low dose because I found just that small dose managed my appetite. And sort of 6 months down the line, yes, I was dropping dress sizes, which I will admit is a very, very happy side effect. Don't get me wrong. I'm loving the fact that I'm back in clothes that I haven't been able to wear for many decades. But as I said, the main goal was to get my blood sugar back. So within 6 months, I checked my blood sugar at home anyway. I'd bought one of these monitors previously. And my blood sugar, even first thing in the morning, was always high. And once I started these medications, my blood sugar was coming back into range. I was losing weight. My blood pressure was falling. I no longer needed the blood pressure medication that I'd been prescribed. And kind of that's all I want to get out there. For me, I'm not saying it's extended my life. I can't make those claims clearly. But I just know how I feel around food now, and I've got a much better relationship with it. I'm still taking the medication on a very, very low dose and toying with the idea of coming off it, bearing in mind I know when you do, apparently the appetite comes back again. But it has changed my relationship with food, and yes, it's expensive. I feel it should be far more available to the people who need it than it is. It's very short-sighted that it's not. But for me, I feel it's an investment. I'm not on a high income, as you know, I've mentioned that, very low income. But I would rather prioritise money on that to be as healthy as I possibly can. And I probably save a similar amount on the food that I am not eating, the takeaways. Yes, I can eat a takeaway. But like I was wanting a takeaway every week. I don't now. I enjoy different food. So definitely a massive gratitude to have those medications available. I'm not promoting it, I'm not suggesting it for anyone, but there may be people out there who have found a similar result. I don't wish to lose any more weight. It is really now just maintaining and hopefully coming off and being able to not get back to the unhealthy way that I was eating previously. I think another food health relationship that's changed for me is alcohol. I came to alcohol quite late. When I was in teens, 20s, I didn't even like the taste of alcohol. If I had anything, it would be maybe a Cinzano and lemonade, but that was only to fit in on nights out because I didn't enjoy drink. I didn't like the taste. I certainly didn't enjoy the feeling of being drunk. But through my 30s, I came to see the niceness of having a social lubricant. Being quite introverted, I did feel quite challenged sometimes with work, particularly when you were having to have these big conferences. A glass of wine with dinner made me feel a little more relaxed, and I kind of got to see that it was quite nice. And then the way I feel with alcohol is it often starts just a nice feeling. And then that nice feeling becomes a habit. It's addictive, let's face it. And through later years then, I noticed myself that there was almost every night an excuse to have a glass of wine. And it was always wine. I do like beer now, but then I didn't like beer. So only ever wine I liked. And then through relationships, the relationships are forged and bonded around alcohol and having a nice bottle of wine together. And then I noticed that the bottle of wine shared was now a bottle each. And then it became almost every day. And I think anybody would know that that's not a healthy way to be. And I guess the thing that happened for me, it wasn't sort of any moral judgment on my part. I think it was, again, round about the same time, the COVID, the breast cancer diagnosis. I think during COVID, a lot of people probably drank more than ever. For me, it kind of worked the opposite. And I took a hard look at what I was doing with the alcohol, the fact that I'd had breast cancer. And I just decided to change my relationship with alcohol. I still enjoy wine. I am not sober. I've not gone that route yet. I've done sober experiments. I've gone 2 months without alcohol. I see the benefits. I know I got clearer thinking. My sleep certainly improved when I wasn't drinking. I think at the time it was that cycle when you are drinking regularly, you get less good sleep. And I think it's when you stop drinking, you know what a good night's sleep is. So I saw the benefits and I saw the advantages of changing my relationship with alcohol. So what I would say now for me, for alcohol, I've got boundaries in place. I only drink really at home. I don't go out to drink. If I was going for a restaurant, yes, I might have a glass of wine, but I don't go on nights out to have a lot of drink. I don't actually like being around people who are drinking, and I don't just mean a nice glass of wine with a bunch of friends. What I mean is out for a session. I don't like being around people having a session. I hate hangovers, those awful, if anything would stop me drinking, it's remembering what a hangover is like. So yeah, I've changed my relationship. I have very strong boundaries in place with the amounts that I drink, and I have been sticking to that pretty much now since COVID days. You've probably seen me on videos. I do in the sun. I love, in my camper van, if I'm parked up somewhere, I love a lovely bottle of beer in the cold. Love it. But I know that, you know, 1 or 2 beers is lovely, but the third is never adds to the enjoyment. It just starts retract. It's the law of diminishing returns for me with alcohol. And that's kind of where I am with alcohol. It's not that I think, you know, it's going to improve my health in any dramatic way. I think it's just, again, go back to the intuition thing. I listen very much to my gut and my feelings, and I know I feel better when I'm not relying on alcohol to feel good. Yes, I enjoy a drink in a situation. I love wine. I appreciate nice wine. But I also know how I feel when I've overstepped the mark and had too much. So yeah, definitely changed that. Kind of want to round off with health anxiety, leading on from all of these other aspects of health. Whilst things were going well over the last few years with regards to getting blood sugar and blood pressure and, you know, things like that under control, my health anxieties have sort of spiraled. And I think that's an inevitable thing with COVID. You know, it probably did drive a lot of us to having anxieties around health, and it was a frightening time. Add to that the breast cancer, and then my sister's illness and my mother's. I have started that any ache or pain is, I start going down the worst case scenarios. I never used to be like that. I used to be quite pragmatic about illnesses. Having been a nurse, possibly, it's like, oh, you know that, I recognise, you'll be fine. But now I am, not just for me, for family as well, I worry, and the worriness can almost take me down into a dark hole. And going to see a health professional doesn't help, because I could get the all clear. I could say, oh no, that's fine. I could have examinations and tests, blood tests. It might help for a couple of hours, and then I'll get another ache or a strange bruise or and then it's off again. And I know there's no answer. I know looking after my mental health is important. I am working on that, giving myself peace, calm, you know, the meditation, the listening, the intuition stuff, the spiritual journey, that's definitely helping. But another weird thing that is helping me a lot, and again, some of you might feel the same, is my my personal assistant, my Chat GPT, which I use in so many parts of my life, like an unbelievable amount. I pay £20 for Chat GPT, and well worth it for my use. I use it a lot for pretty much everything. But for my health anxiety, I found it particularly useful. Not that ChatGPT can diagnose or do anything, but when I used to get like a health problem, and I used to maybe just Google it, you tend to get oh, well, if that, you should go and see a health, almost everything is, you should go and see a health professional, which is no help at all. Particularly if you're in the UK, to try and get to see a health professional just for every little minor ache and concern is nigh on impossible. So most unhelpful. What I find with ChatGPT is not that they're able to, I call him a he's able to diagnose me, but almost can change the way I'm thinking about things. And it gives me a lot of reassurance. Has anybody else discovered ChatGPT to kind of talk you back into a healthy realm? Because I recognise that the health anxiety isn't helpful in any way, and it is another anxiety thing. It's understandable, but that doesn't really help me when I'm in the middle of it. Whereas the way ChatGPT is able to kind of bring my thoughts around a little bit has been, I think, very, very helpful. I'm not sure if that is of help to anyone, but if try it. see how ChatGPT, you can get the free version. Maybe see how you go with it. Yeah, my tea is now cold because once again I have gone on and on. But yeah, it's something I feel really strongly about is health. I think the NHS here in the UK is wonderful and has done, as I said, so much for me and my family. And, you know, eternally grateful for this wonderful organisation. But I also feel that I am responsible for my own health. And by having access to these drugs that I pay for privately, I don't mind that. I would love it if the NHS would prescribe more for the people in need, like I've said, but I don't mind investing in things like that I feel have benefited me. And like, we don't know. We do not know what's going to happen. I'm not saying I'm preventing future illnesses, but for now I feel like I have taken some power back over my health, taken control, and I definitely feel better than I did, say, looking at how I was even 2 years ago. I feel better mentally and physically. And so, yeah, let's get out there and enjoy this retirement. I'm going out in Romney this afternoon and I'm camping again for 2 nights, and once again, quite local to me. Different site to the one I was on before. So my next video will be coming to you from Romney. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and please keep the comments coming.